Leo summoned Draper Daniels and a top art director to his Lake Zurich country home.
Started to work out there at the farm about 9:30 Saturday morning. I said, what's the most masculine symbol you can think of? And one of these writers spoke up and said, a cowboy.
Leo went into his file of great photos, great ads, and he gets out a picture of a cowboy with 3 days stubble of beard, and he's smoking a cigarette.
The team sketched a format inspired by the Life magazine cover, and they tweaked the design of the Marlboro package to appear more masculine.
Monday morning, we set the type on the ad, and we slapped this together in a matter of less than 24 hours, I would say. Well, the art director brought it in, showed it to me, and I just jumped out of my chair. I mean, I've been in the advertising business quite a while, but this is one of the greatest things I'd ever seen.
Burnett ran a full-page ad of his Marlboro Man in several cities. Within a month, Marlboro became the #1 selling filter cigarette in New York.
The Marlboro Man was able to take a product that was considered feminine because of that filter and suddenly make it seem hardcore.
Leo Burnett died at his home in 1971. He had been a master of messaging until the very end. As his staff looked back on Leo's speech at the annual Christmas party, it suddenly spoke volumes.
Let me tell you when I might demand that you take my name off the door. That will be the day when you spend more time trying to make money and less time making advertising, our kind of advertising. When you lose that restless feeling that nothing you do is ever quite good enough. That, boys and girls, is when I shall insist you take my name off the door. Even if I have to materialize long enough some night to rub it out myself and throw every goddamn apple down the elevator shaft.
Chicago schools' campaigns were grounded in humble Midwestern values.
I like to think the language of our ads has been ventilated in the fresh Chicago breezes and rinsed in the clear waters of Lake Michigan.
As the counterculture slowly seeped into Burnett's offices, Leo made it clear he was not a fan.
I had a terrific young writer working for me named Eric Ross. And Eric Ross was a hippie, and he had a guitar, and he wrote this song, Hey, 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 Matus Rose. Hey,
hey, hey, Matus Rose.
And Eric had his bicycle on the elevator. And, excuse me, my bicycle, he moved on the elevator with his bike. Leo was on it. He didn't say a word. Eric got off at the floor. Leo went up to the next floor, and after the doors closed, Leo said, "You better be damn good."
Thanks, everybody. Before I say another word, I want to offer my deepest congratulations to everybody who has appeared before me on this program. I've just sat out there dumbfounded by the kind of a thing we have here. It's just great. It really is, don't you think so? For the past 15 years, in our year-end letters, and for the past 5 years in these breakfasts, I have talked to you like a Dutch uncle. And I'm not going to stop now. You wouldn't expect me to, would you? Well, in preparing these remarks, I went over all 15 of the year-end letters and distilled out of them viewpoints I regard as most significant in the growth of the agency to date and to its future. And this seemed like a good time to review them with you and to put them into the record in their most unadulterated form. When I'm through, I hope you won't feel that I don't wish every one of you a very Merry Christmas, because I most certainly do. Above all, I want every one of you to know that I have the greatest confidence in the people around here and in the way things are going. In fact, I think that under our new leadership, we are producing better advertising than we have in years. They were getting better, getting hotter by the month, and are moving into phase 3 of this business under a full head of steam. This agency means everything in the world to me, especially its philosophy and its character. And so does its future. Not just next year and the year after that, but 10, 20, even 50 years from now, especially if my name is still connected with it. Because of this connection, I got a little wound up recently and decided that the only way I could really bring home to you the things I want to say was by saying them from the heart and under this title, When to Take My Name Off the Door. Somewhere along the line, after I am finally off the premises, you or your successors may want to take my name off the premises too. You may want to call yourselves Twain, Rogers, Sawyer, and Finn Incorporated, or Ajax Advertising, or something. That will certainly be okay with me if it's good for you. But let me tell you when I might demand that you take my name off the door. That will be the day when you spend more time trying to make money and less time making advertising, our kind of advertising. When you forget that the sheer fun of ad making and the lift you get out of it, the creative climate of the place, should be as important as money to the very special breed of writers and artists and business professionals who compose this company of ours and make it tick. When you lose that restless feeling that nothing you do is ever quite good enough. When you lose your itch to do the job well for its own sake, regardless of the client, or the money, or the effort it takes. When you lose your passion for thoroughness, your hatred of loose ends. When you stop reaching for the manner, the overtone, the marriage of words and pictures that produces the fresh, the memorable, and the believable effect. When you stop rededicating yourselves every day to the idea that better advertising is what the Leo Burnett Company is all about. When you are no longer what Thoreau called a corporation with a conscience, which means to me a corporation of conscientious men and women. When you begin to compromise your integrity, which has always been the heart's blood, the very guts of this agency. When you stoop to convenient expediency and rationalize yourselves into acts of opportunism for the sake of a fast buck. When you show the slightest sign of crudeness, inappropriateness, or smart aleckness, and lose that subtle sense of the fitness of things. When your main interest becomes a matter of size, just to be big, rather than good, hard, wonderful work. When your outlook narrows down to the number of windows, from 0 to 5, in the walls of your office. When you lose your humility and become big-shot Weisenheimers, a little too big for your boots. When the apples come down to being just apples for eating or for polishing, no longer part of our tone, our personality. When you disapprove of something and start tearing the hell out of the man who did it, rather than the work itself. When you stop building on strong and vital ideas and start a routine production line. When you start believing that in the interest of efficiency, a creative spirit and the urge to create can be delegated and administered, and forget that they can only be nurtured, stimulated, and inspired. When you start giving lip service to this being a creative agency and stop really being one, Finally, when you lose your respect for the lonely man, the man at his typewriter or his drawing board or behind his camera or just scribbling notes with one of our big black pencils or working all night on a media plan, when you forget that the lonely man, and thank God for him, has made the agency we now have possible, when you forget he's a man who, because he's reaching harder, sometimes actually gets hold of, for a moment, one of those hot, unreachable stars. That, boys and girls, is when I shall insist you take my name off the door. And by golly, it will be taken off the door. Even if I have to materialize long enough some night to rub it out myself on every one of your floors. And before I dematerialize again, I will paint out that star-reaching symbol, too, and burn all the stationery. Perhaps tear up a few ads in passing, and throw every goddamn apple down the elevator shaft. You just won't know the place the next morning. You have to find another name. But right now, dear Leo Burnett Company Incorporated, dear Leo Burnett Company of Canada Limited, dear Leo Burnett Company Limited of London, and dear D.P. Brother and Company, an incorporated division of Leo Burnett Company Incorporated, keep right on with what you were doing, but more of it, more of it. I'm very proud of you and wish you a Merry Christmas and a big New Year, personally, unincorporated, and unlimited.
The writer is concerned with what he puts into his writing. The communicator is concerned not just with what he puts into a piece of writing, but with what the reader gets out of it. He therefore becomes a student of how people read and how they listen. He learns that most readers come away from their reading not with a clear, precise, detailed registration of its contents on their minds, but rather with a vague, misty idea which was formed as much by the pace and the proportions and the music of the writing as by the literal words themselves. And he learns that the reader reads with his ego, his emotions, with his compulsions, his prejudices, his urges, and his aspirations, and that he plots with his brain to rationalize the facts until they become the tools of his desire.
You've been widely depicted as skeptical of research, are you?
Not at all, and I'm really delighted to be able to answer that. I think that perhaps the most important aspect of advertising is how you say what has to be said, because by and large, we can find out what to say. I am a very, very firm believer in research, but you owe a responsibility to research. After research helps you find out what to say, you owe it to research to say it in a fresh and new way. Now, in hair coloring, we did the research, and we find out, as all our competitors found out, that women most want to avoid looking artificial when they color their hair. Well, everybody found that out, so everybody began to say you will look natural. But we said it, and everybody else was saying it. And when everybody says the same thing, you don't stand out. And therefore, your impact is tremendously reduced, and there's even confusion and misidentification. Well, all we did was nice and easy, with virtually no change of any kind, not even the content. We wanted to say natural. We said, how can we say it in a fresh way so that it's no longer hackneyed? And we changed that natural bit to, it lets me be me. Now, that is virtually saying the same thing, but it's also saying what you are is pretty good, and we're going to make the most of it for you. Well, I would say in the last 5 years, since this campaign started, with virtually no other change of any kind, there hasn't been a Nielsen that was lower than the previous Nielsen, and today it's the biggest selling hair coloring, I would say, in the world.